I would like to briefly touch upon the Center for Digital Transformation. We all are aware that India and Indian industry is going through a major transformation. We are at the right at the center of that transformation. This transformation is about business transformation, which requires transformation of the underlying business processes. This in turn is enabled by technology that has to transform to meet the changes in the business process. So digital transformation is actually business transformation, which is no longer an option, but a necessity. According to one of the studies which we conducted on Industry 4.0, the readiness of the Indian enterprise for digital and Industry 4.0 lags behind the required threshold for Industry 4.0. On an average, even the solution providers lag slightly behind in terms of that threshold, although the gap is much lower. When we dig deeper into the reasons for the gap, we realize that there were several barriers. There was lack of clear digital operations vision and leadership support. Perhaps that stemmed out from unclear quantifiable economic benefits in digital investments. There is a major need for skilled workforce capable of supporting this digital shift. There are issues with digital security and privacy, lack of digital standards, norms, and benchmarks. There is even scope for better technology collaboration among solution providers. We saw the need to lead with transformation. We believe that our partners could help support organizations in this digital transformation journey. The center was born with this aim. The Center for Digital Transformation has been formed with a vision to be the center of an international repute that enables continuous betterment of organizations through digital transformation. We are on a mission to evolve and leverage digital transformation movement that transforms India by building systems of intelligence, by bringing in more personal computing, helping organizations adopt intelligent cloud and reinvent their productivity and business processes, thereby enhancing their effectiveness and inclusive growth. The center has identified a few core areas in long-term charter to realize our vision and mission. We will focus on building assessment and advisory capabilities for the organizations in digital transformation journey. We will have special focus on cybersecurity. One of our key focus will be creating skill building programs to build the right foundation. And finally, we want to recognize and share the best practices in digital transformation through Digital Transformation Awards. With this, I would like to hand over the webinar to Mr. Raj, who is the head of the pre-sales India, MECCA and SAARC for Tata Communications, which is a part of a 55 billion Tata group. He is responsible for understanding the market from an overall perspective to enable his stakeholders to have a meaningful discussion, make quicker decisions, and keep them ahead of the curve. Now I hand over to Mr. Raj. Kindly give us 1 minute to make the change.
Thank you, Colonel. I'm hoping that you can hear me well, and my voice is loud and clear. Okay, I'll take that as a yes. The participants really appreciate you joining the call and giving us an opportunity to take you through the digital transformation that is going through in the manufacturing industry at this point of time, with a specific focus on the India market. Now, I'm sure you know, but a few facts to start off with. Fact number one is India is the 6th largest manufacturing country at this point of time. And it obviously forms an integral part of India's future and the way India is going forward, and therefore Government of India also have come up with something very specific in manufacturing sector, which they're calling it as Make in India campaign. The second is the government has very categorically said that by 2022 they'll increase the GDP from manufacturing to 25% from the existing 17% that is there. That puts the pressure or the focus, if I may use a more positive term, on how Industry 4.0 is going to help the companies in this sector to actually do more or look at it in a very different manner. And that's where digital transformation in its core comes in. So if I can move to the next slide, I'd actually like to tell you that first, that what digital transformation is all about, right? There are a lot of things that people talk about in digital transformation. If you ask different people, you'll get different definitions. A clear, significance of this is what you can see on the slide. Over the last 12 odd months, I've asked multiple customers and my colleagues on what do they understand by digital transformation and what for them signifies digital transformation. You can see many things which is coming up in the word cloud. For many people, digital transformation is process automation. For some, it is simply increasing efficiency. For some, it's basically analytics. How can data speak more for them? For some, it actually talks about how mindset change and cultural changes can happen, right? So there are multiple definitions of digital transformation basis what they are going through in their company. But if you look at a holistic definition that we are trying to come up with, which is a combination of CII and Tata Communications from CDT, the definition that we have looked at is more holistic and from an overall level, which we would like to then take our companies through, or our member companies through. So digital transformation, as you can see written on the screen, is an integration of digital technology into all areas of business. Please focus on the words that I say out here. It's all areas of business, fundamentally changing how you operate to deliver value to customers, right? It's also a cultural change that requires organizations to continuously challenge the status quo, experiment, and learn and evolve, right? So digital transformation is not an endpoint, but it's a journey. So the moment somebody says that I am digitally transformed, maybe that company / the individual is not saying the right thing, because digital transformation for everybody is a journey. Some people or companies started with this digital transformation journey years back, whereas some of them has just started or is about to start. So let's look at the India market. I spoke about that India today is the 6th largest in manufacturing from a global perspective, and Government of India wants to increase it to 25% from a GDP perspective. So India, from an India perspective, the DT transformational market, the CAGR that we see from 2019 to 24 is close to 75%, right? And we also see that 65% of all the manufacturing / industrial companies are going to be at an advanced level of digitization by 2020. Now, the question that you can ask yourself is whether you are within that advanced level or you are actually more or you're less. If the answer to that is the last one, which is, you are still to be, position yourself at the advanced level, and you want to look at enablers which can help you reach there, you're actually in the right webinar. Let's look at a few things. So what are the big enablers? So 3 big enablers which will help you to reach to a level where you can say that I have done something for my company. I've actually taken my company to a level where I can say I'm at an advanced level of digitization. The first thing, which is a no-brainer, is rapid investment or advancement in technological areas like AI, IoT, machine learning, and so on and so forth. The second one is process efficiency and process optimization. The third one, which is the most difficult one, is digital workforce, meaning it also talks about not only technology, but also cultural change that needs to happen from the top to bottom. It's not only the management or the CXO level people who are going to demand or we're going to drive digital transformation by becoming digital, but it will be all through the company. Now let's look at where India from a manufacturing perspective is. We can say that India is at the cusp of advancement at this point of time. Now again, a lot of people talk about Industry 4.0. So let me just spend a minute on the 4 stages. So Industry 1.0 started in 18th century, where we looked at water and steam power, machines, and so on and so forth. Industry 2.0 was in the beginning of 20th century, where we looked at mass production, electrical energy, and so on and so forth. 3.0 was actually the last few decades of 20th century, where we saw invention of manufacturing of a variety of electronic devices. We saw programmable logic controller, PLCs, and so on and so forth. 4.0 is where cyber physical systems, or CSPs, come into picture. In this, Industry 4.0 uses CSPs to share, analyze, and guide intelligent actions for various processes, right? Now, when you look at what where India manufacturing industry is at this point of time, it's at the cusp of moving from 3.0 to 4.0. And I'm sure you, the people who are listening to this webinar, are either moving towards 4.0 or is at already at some places you have already done 3.0 in terms of IoT and so on and so forth. Now, if you do not do this, if you do not look at 4.0, if you do not look at, digital transformation, if you don't think about how those cultural changes will happen, how you'll challenge status quo, is that something that you can live with? Let's look at a few examples where people did not really adapt and embrace to change to thrive. The first example that I'd like to take is of JCPenney. Now, for those who know JCPenney, it's an American departmental store with they were in huge number of retail business. There were stores to buy clothes and so on and so forth. And they were actually in their heights in early 2000. Between 2005 to 2007, they were actually at the top. Now, if you look at JCPenney, they have closed most of their shops. They have lost more than $1 billion. More than 12,000 employees, and so on and so forth. Because what you look at the clipping, the paper clipping that you've taken out here, JCPenney loses double as digital transformation remains at the thoughtful stage after nearly 5 years. So they did not really make that change. Toshiba was one of the first people to come up with a very cool laptop. Many people think that Apple was the first one. Actually, no. Toshiba was one of the first ones to come up with a sleek design for laptops. And, they did not go internet way. They did not go the retail, selling on the internet way. They said, I'm only going to sell to business and so on and so forth. And, now you can see where Toshiba is from a laptop business perspective, right? So, again, you can see a few clippings that we have taken out here. It took Toshiba 70 years to reach its peak, just a decade to fall into an abyss, right? The last but not the least one is Sony. Now, Sony changed the way you listen to music, right? For the people who are a bit older than me, you recall that Walkman, where you can hear songs from a cool little device. But they did not really keep their market leadership position, and Apple came in and took away their share. So these are the people who did not adapt and embrace to change. Few people started, but they did not really go in the right direction. So the first example here that I'd like to talk about is GE. Now, most of you know GE. I really admire that company. But GE, while they initiated digital transformation, they didn't really live up to the expectations of what digital transformation can do for them. They actually started this transformation journey with a company which is GE Digital in around 2012-13 types, but then after spending a whole lot of money, since internal signature or internal take-up was not really there, it didn't go anywhere. Similar story in Nike. I'm not going to go into detail, but then Nike was one of the first ones to put a lot of IoT devices in or tech into their shoes and stuff like that. They came up with this band. Nobody knows about that band anymore. People talk about a lot of other bands, but not really Nike. So you can see that they started, but they didn't go well. And same with BBC, where they spent more than $100 million on digital transformation, but got nothing in return. So while this company started, but they didn't do it right. But other examples where companies have done it are actually going the right way? The answer is yes. So let's look at a few. Ford is a classic example on how they are coming back from where they were in early 2000 to where they are at this point of time. While in 2000s they were not doing that well, they actually started their journey in 2006 going into digital transformation. And today, if you look at Ford, they have launched something like Ford Sync or My Ford Touch, which can actually change the way cars look like, or cars will go from an OEM like Ford moving forward. And they are actually now giving tough competition to the newbies that have come into the market and created a new lot of hype, right? The next one I'd like to talk about is from GE. Now, while I said that GE put a lot of money in GE Digital and didn't really go forward, but the moment you look at GE Aviation, they did a lot of things on cloud, and their foray into specifically how they can save money, how they can do additive manufacturing by also using 3D printing and so on and so forth, paid huge benefits, and they are one of the biggest one in aviation sectors at this point of time. The last but not the least is Trelleborg. Trelleborg again, went into robotics, and they have seen a whole lot of benefits out of it. So I just wanted to give you a few examples of people who did not do changes, what happened there, people who started on the digital journey but then didn't really go well, what happened there, and the successful journeys that we have taken forward, where you can see that they have really got a lot of returns per se. If there are any questions, then I'll love to answer them post the call. Now, in the next slide, we are going to go and look at the core technology pillars, which actually formulate digital transformation. Now, these are 6 different things that you can actually look at, which will help you go digital, which will actually help you do the digital transformation in manufacturing per se. The first one is Internet of Things. The second one is cloud computing. Third one being analytics, robotics, cybersecurity, and AR/VR. Now, these are things I'm sure you do not need to. I don't need to really talk about more. But if you just remember the last slide that I talked about, robotics is what Trelleborg did, and from 0 to 40, the number of robots that they took, because actually they are working on a cobots model where human and robots work together in a collaborative environment to actually take things forward and make manufacturing more optimized process. So they worked on robotics, they worked on culture, and they also worked on how the entire process is going to look like. With this, I'm going to move to a few poll questions. So, if you can, CI team, if you can help me get those poll questions, we can quickly ask those fun questions and people can answer them. And let's see what you think about, the 4 questions that we have and what's your perspective on them. So go ahead, it's question number 2. Please answer this. It's a very simple question. I'm sure you'll get it very easily. We'll share the poll answers after we close all the 4 questions. Last question, and then we can quickly see, what's the poll answers. So Kavita, we should have got the polls by now. Can you tell us what is the poll results? Okay, brilliant. So here we see for question number 1, which was what is essential for implementing IoT in Industry 4.0, 87% answered interoperability with existing equipment. This is absolutely right answer. You do not need to replace existing legacy systems. Thank you, Kavita. If you can go to the next one. Okay, question number 2 was, what is the key element while running an analytics model on your data? So 72% of people said understand the science behind data. Again, 72% is correct. You do not need large data leads for better results. You need to just understand the science behind data. Excellent answer. Next question, please. Okay, the third one was, can a company digitally transform itself without going to cloud? The 95%, wow, 95% said transforming the operation includes adopting the cloud, which is absolutely correct. Digital transformation does not mean that you have to only go to cloud. Brilliant. It means that everybody is clued on to digital transformation and they know what they're talking about. Brilliant. I'm really loving this crowd. Kavita, we can go to the last one. Okay, the last one is a company transforming itself and adopting robotics will lead to 97% says new tools requiring upskilled labor, which is absolutely correct. It will not result in enormous benefits or enormous layouts. Sorry. So it seems that you are absolutely on top of the questions, and I'm hoping you love the questions. With that, we'll move on to my next slide. So Kavita, if you can go on to the next slide. Thank you so much. Okay, so now let's look at what I talked about in slide number 2, where I said there are 3 levers for digital transformation, and I'll start from the flip one. So the first one is people, and in people there are 2 very important things that we need to look at. The first is mindset, and the second is skill set. We'll have to work on both of them, right? So as you correctly mentioned, that robotics does not mean that there will be layoffs, but then it will mean that there will be new jobs, because people will get new skill sets, or there will be people who will be coming in with new skill sets. So that's what the skill set talks about. The mindset is, again, can I work with the robot, right? In the same location, can a robot come and work with me? How will I work with somebody on a new machine? How will I work alone in an entire floor without anyone else around me, just machines, right? So there's a huge mindset and skill set change which will happen from a people perspective. The second is process. Now, in process, there are 2 very important things. One is, of course, you'll do automation, right? Many things will go on machine. You'll actually bring in robotics. You'll bring in RPA on top of it. But then you'll have to also look at optimization, because if you carry on doing the same thing as is, you may not get higher results. Then therefore you'll have to look at how do I do process optimization in terms of cutting down redundant steps, or bring in steps which will cut down, say, 3 or more steps. So that's what process means. And the third and the most important thing is tools or technology. Here is where devices plus connectivity and security comes in, right? And when you look at Tata Communications, from where what I represent, we work on both process and tools in terms of either IoT, robotics, cybersecurity, AR, VR, analytics, and cloud computing. So, for example, in cloud computing, we can actually work with you to give you the best solution for your digital journey, either on a public cloud or on a private cloud. In Internet of Things, we can work with you for the correct solution, whether it's on LoRa-based WAN topology, or it is on GSM topology, where we can even give you solutions which are, say, for employee safety, health and safety solutions. So there are some cool solutions that we can work with you for taking things forward from here. Now, I'd like to hand over to Mr. Padmanabhan to take you through what we did with Bosch. Mr. Padmanabhan, please.
Thank you, Raj, and thanks for the wonderful overview about digital transformation and how the how the industry is also evolving and how everyone is actually adopting, right? And in the next few minutes, I'll be talking about how Tata Communications has helped Bosch with the digital transformation journey of Bosch, right? Bosch has actually many initiative on the digital front. I'm going to talk about one of the key and complex initiative, which is cloud. Why I meant cloud? Because it required designing phase, it required implementation, it required migration, as well as actually monitoring. A holistic service provider who can actually provide all the 4. Apart from that, there are elements involved, which is security, and see to that actually there is a low latency, and see to that actually when during the migration process there is no production hindrance or a loss happens, right? So Tata Communications is actually one of the players. Why it was chosen by Bosch is because of 2 major things, right? One, during the migration process, Tata Communications has actually come out with a plan to ensure that the work is not affected during the implementation phase, right? And then also ensure that there is a seamless connectivity between actually Microsoft Azure platform as well as company systems and ensure that there is a low latency. So these are the two key features which Tata Communications has come up, which would put them an edge forward when compared with a lot of other market player when it came to provide services for BOSS. So this is how Tata Communication has helped BOSS in implementation as well as post implementation. They also ensure that they are able to monitor up and running of the hosted services, and it was a win-win situation for both Tata as well as BOSS for successful migration. That too, this has happened within 2 months time period. They worked with application team as well as the infrastructure team and the engineering team to come out with a robust plan and ensure that there was no protection loss, and the system is implemented. So over to Raj now.
Thank you, Mr. Padmanabhan. I'll end the presentation here, and if there are any questions, please type it out in the question section, and myself or Colonel or Mr. Padmanabhan will be very happy to answer them.
Thank you, Raj. This is Kavita. Now, I would like to first request some of the participants, I think, who have been keenly going through your presentation. Most of them have not typed out their questions yet. But in the meanwhile, I'll take some of the ones that have come forth. One very interesting question is that, is there a smart factory in India, or maybe Industry 4.0? What's the difference between both also?
Okay, very, very interesting question. And, see, smart factory can be as simple as connected factory, or smart factory can be one where there is no people working at this point of time, right? So, in India, there is no example of a company or a factory where, there is no people working. It's totally automated. But if I look at smart factory from the definition of connected systems, in terms of whether CPA has been implemented or not, yes, there are multiple examples of that. Now, the second part of it, Kavita, was smart factory, and what was the other one, Kavita? I missed that. Sorry.
What is the difference between a smart factory and Industry 4.0?
Okay. See, Industry 4.0 is more of a definition or a guideline on which you can say whether you have gone to the connected factory examples or not, whether you are doing things like ML, AI, and so on and so forth. It's more of a guideline. So smart factory will fall in 4.0 example. So when I talked about India is moving from 3.0 to 4.0, I was actually mentioning that here is where smart factories come in, and 4.0 is where smart factories will be more and more relevant. I hope I answered the question.
Okay. Now another question.
Thanks. I would like to add.
Yes,
yeah,
please
Mr.
go ahead.
Padmanabhan would like to add something.
One of the classic example. I cannot name name of the company, but how they adopted a digital factory, right? If you look at car assembly, right, there will be various different models of car will be manufactured on the same platform, right? Picking up during the production process, one will come with one variant, and followed by the next one will be a different variant, right? In order to pick up the right spare parts, which will be on the garage, in the digital transformation factory, a right kind of a light will glow based on RFID ID, which model the car belongs to. It will help the assembler to pick up the right spare part and actually fix it, because it has multiple car which is lined up in the production platform. So this is one of the transformation example where are available in India.
Thank you, Mr. Padmanabhan. So, Kavita, hope that answered that point, and thanks, Padmanabhan, to kind of give an example out here. So you can move to the next question, Kavita.
Thank you. Now the next question is again something similar. Which Indian manufacturer has had the most impressive DT journey?
Again, if I give a name, it may not be the right one because I do not know all the manufacturers in India. Within the large ones that I know about, I can safely say that Bajaj or Maruti has done a lot of things. But I'm sure when I start looking at more and more companies, which we are going to do with CII very shortly, and Colonel can talk about it. We are going to launch something very, very shortly, which will conclude by the end of the year, where we can give benchmarks from most of the industries in terms of who is doing what, and what are the things that you can look at or take examples from in those specific companies. Colonel, do you want to add something here?
No, I would just like to reiterate that there's no specific benchmark available in the industry as of now, wherein we can say who has had the best journey. But as you rightly brought out, we are building up a maturity model which will be a sort of a benchmark available for the industry to gauge themselves where do they stand with respect to others in the country.
Okay, thank you. Now over to the next question. Very interesting. How we ensure the 100% security against threats?
Oh my, it's like I'm not going to joke about the question, but it's a very interesting question, and I get that question a lot from our customers. Threats or security is something that you should protect yourself as much as you can. It's like protecting your home. You can put 3 locks, but that does not mean that somebody cannot break into your home. It just says that it is harder to break into your home, and therefore the miscreant may try to actually break into a different home with less security. So in security specifically, the thumb rule is make it harder for the miscreants to come in or the hackers to come in, so that the next option becomes a more lucrative option and they give up. So that's what security is all about. In security, you should protect yourself in all the layers that are there, starting from the network layer to the app layer, and obviously look at how you can do risk and compliance, depending on which country or the industry that you're working in, and ensuring that your security layers are so stringent that it's extremely hard to break in. Nobody in the world can say security is unbreakable, because everything there is a loophole, which if you try hard you can get it. There are a lot of ethical hackers which are around. Actually, we also have the red team and the blue team, which goes around and tries to hack into customers, ethically hack into customers, so that we can say which are the loopholes that you have in security, and we then plug those holes.
Thank you so much. Now, a question related to how a person implements this. It's from the financial aspect. Like they say, from a financial cost perspective, what is the cost of this digital transformation for a mid-sized company, say a turnover of rupees 500 to 1,000 crores?
Okay, so thank you for that question. It tells me that the person who has asked this question is looking for an answer. So whoever has asked this question, really appreciate. The answer that I'd like to give you is, as Colonel said some time back, it is not one size fits all kind of a story which we are looking out here. Digital transformation is always a journey, and it depends on what you can do at this point of time. Whether you should start with processes only or a combination of process, tool, and people is totally dependent on where you are in the journey, whether you are at 3.0, pure, simple, physical, nothing connected kind of a system, so you need to start somewhere, or you've already reached at the cusp of 4.0 and you're looking at the next big thing to happen, right? So when you're saying you are a company between 500 crores to 1,000 crores, it's not a small company, and which means that you have some complex systems in place, right? And that's where to bring in efficiencies into those complex systems, the first thing, the low-hanging fruit can be a process answer, low-hanging fruit can be a people answer or a tool answer. So we need to look at where you are, to work closely with you to give those answers.
Thank you. Now another question is about implementation as such. It's like, what steps would you recommend for a factory to start with to move towards 4.0?
Oh, very good question. So 4.0 actually started in 1990s, right? And it's basically which it says that how traditional manufacturing can be brought towards a physical to virtual world through internet, right? And that's where cyber physical systems came in, which says that how you can actually use sensors and actuators with the virtual world for information processing and so on and so forth. So it's a bit, I'm sure people who are asking knows about it. So it's about, first thing which it talks about is connected systems. Now, a lot of companies today have machines all across, and many a times what they do is they connect it only on between themselves for a process efficiency perspective. But then they do not do it with other things like how your supply chain management looks like, how your customer orders are looking like, and so on and so forth. So when you connect the entire chain and not only limited to that physical location where physical machines are connected to each other and maybe doing 5% efficiency improvement, that's not really 4.0. So the journey starts with looking at how you can start connecting your machines and then bringing your processes into it, whether it is starting from how the customer orders are flowing in, how your supply chain is looking like, how you're taking your finished products to a warehouse, and so on and so forth, right? So that's the step one that we should always look at.
Thank you. You mentioned about connectivity, and the next question is also about the same, saying that connectivity is a big issue for the last mile discipline. So how to address the same?
Okay, brilliant question. So connectivity can be looked at in different manner. Now, when you are talking about, say, your connectivity into an SAP or an SCM and so on, SCM is basically supply chain management system, or your SAP and CRM systems, right? They should be in a data center. A lot of times what I've seen manufacturing do is, because of the fact that they have large real estate, they also have the data center in the same location. But then, when the moment you look at what other things that are there, fortunately, if you look at it, the machines which are there, they really do not need a lot of bandwidth, right? Can you hear me? Is it audible now? I've been told that I'm not audible.
Yes, you're audible now. Yes, you're audible.
Okay, excellent. So, as I said, the central system should be in the data center or cloud, and the the factory location should have lighter systems which can be connected on lighter bandwidths. The moment you say I need a 1 gig at a factory location, which is outskirts of even a T3 city, given that a gig out there becomes a problem. but you're taking that gig maybe for different reasons. But if it is only for connecting the machines, let me assure you, you do not need that kind of bandwidth, and that is where even something like a 5G technology or a 4G technology or a LoRa based technology comes in and helps you. So I'm hoping that that will be helpful for you.
We have a very long question. I was trying to reach the question. It's Amazon has been using digital transformation for some time now, and using that they have replaced humans with robots. Here in the AGVs are involved in the packaging of products, which is done automatically. In doing so, the customer often ends up getting bigger packets for a small product, which could have been possible with a smaller packaging, thereby resulting in wastage, misuse of packaging. How can DT stop this?
Brilliant question, and whoever asked this is actually looking at things very minutely. If you read some blogs, this has been actually highlighted. The simple answer to this is that while robotics, which is tech, has been looked at few of the packaging locations, the process has not been looked at quite well. The answer to this is a process fix rather than the robotics fix. The robots will do what they're asked to do, or what they're programmed to do. If you fix the process and tell them to do a few things differently for smaller things, they'll do it. So it's a process fix.
Okay. Now the next question is that recently robots have been seen in restaurants and many have been launched in India. Can we expect big vendors like Domino's, KFC following the same?
Wow, good question. Unfortunately, I do not work in Domino's or KFC. Yes, I saw a robotics-based restaurant which was launched very recently in Bangalore. There were a lot of news around it. I think it was Bangalore only, it'll be future forward. I can take a bet. I'll say yes. Whoever asked that question is actually bang on the money. Repeated jobs or things that can be replicated will go to robotics or robots at one point in time. So from that perspective, what happens in things like Domino's or McDonald's or KFC, once you do repeated jobs again and again, it will move to robots. But what I also think is the frontline guys who has a smile on the face, that smile, and that's where robots will be there. There will be people also working. So the smile on the face will always be on a human, and the people working on the background who are frying the chicken or making the buns will be the robots. So it will be a cobot model per se.
Thank you. That's interesting. Now, another question is, which segment of the industry function is undergoing the maximum transformation when it comes to digitization and manufacturing industry? Is it production operations, workforce, service delivery, or customer experience?
At this point of time, excellent question. At this point of time, the maximum thing that I'm looking at, or I see examples of, is in customer experience. Because that's where a lot of people are really, really focusing on.
Just a moment. We have listened to the webinar and we say that okay, fine, this is for us. We would be sending in the link. Now there's another question. How will network slicing play a role in DT?
Oh, very, very, very nice question. So as you see, network and the way network is evolving, it has gone beyond a simple private network to more of a public network, to software-defined network, and so on and so forth. Network slicing is a bit complex. When it will be implemented for the industries in India, we'll have to see. but it may be a reality not in many years forward, but few years forward per se. It will depend on how you are actually implementing the devices, right? So, for example, if you do edge computing, maybe you need something like that. If you are not, then you don't. So if you only have your employees who needs to be connected or machines which needs to be connected, you may not really need a lot of network out there, with huge number of functionalities and features, right? There is simple, WAN or an SD-WAN may be the answer for you. So the point is that the more complex you make your factory locations from a compute power requirement or a storage power requirement, the more complex your network will also be. Simple at the factory locations, the things will be simpler out there, which I will always propagate that at the factory locations, because you do not have the technical manpower, you keep it simple. Be complex at the data center, because that's where the complexity should lie. Your entire complexity should lie at the data center. The factory should be as simple as, somebody has to do something, he has to just flip a switch and everything starts working again.
Okay, another question is whether we should go for cloud server or should we have an internal server?
Wow. Again, very interesting question. I'd always say that please go for cloud, because internal servers is not the way forward. It means that you have to actually manage something which is not your core competency. Your core competency is manufacturing, and believe me, we understand servers, computing, storage, maybe a bit more than you. I'm not trying to be boosting out here, but since that is our core competency, we understand it better. And believe me, you can actually bring in more innovations and tell you what new things are happening in this world, whether from a private perspective or from a public perspective, and what will give you more returns. So I always say that go for cloud.
Okay. Now this is all about integration. So there's a question where they want to know, whether they should go for vertical integration or horizontal integration, and which one should be carried out first.
Again, I'd not really like to generalize things. It is never one size fits all. While horizontal integration can be an answer for few, vertical integration can be an answer for others. So again, we'll have to look at the use case and what you're trying to do, where you are in the journey, and then say that, because otherwise it will be a speech from me.
Thank you, Raj. We are now receiving a lot of inputs in terms of people are also trying to share their knowledge and their inputs. I'll request if anybody has got some specific question, they may ask their questions here.
So, Colonel, if you can give some inputs which you are hearing, it will be interesting.
Okay.
If you may.
Yeah, there's just one more question, which is a specific question: the cost of a high sensor and a sensor certification.
I'll not be aware of that. It seems to be a subject that I'm not really aware of, and it seems to be a subject which is very much manufacturing centric. So I'll not be able to answer that. Sorry.
We'll just wait for another 30 seconds if anybody has a question. Thank you for the response from everybody. We are getting a lot of inputs. People are giving their suggestions as well, which we will try and respond back offline with them.
There's a question, what migration strategy did they follow at Bosch?
Sorry, come again. I didn't get that question.
The question is, what migration strategy did they follow at Bosch?
Okay. It will take more than 1 or 2 minutes for me to answer that. But what I can safely tell you is that there was parallel architecture built on the cloud while the existing on-prem architecture was running, and the entire thing was shifted without any downtime. So there was a parallel setup made, and then the shift happened without any downtime.
Was any tool used is another question. And the cost.
Was any tool used for what?
How much data?
Is it related to Bosch?
Yeah, it's related to Bosch from the same person.
Okay. So
I think we are getting into specifics.
Yeah, sure. So I'm not.
We'll respond offline to them as and when required. And thank you, Raj, for such an informative webinar. And I'm sure our viewers would have found it quite valuable. There has been a very good response. We are still getting comments and inputs on this. Thank you so much, and thank you every participant for participating. Raj, once again, thank you for your efforts and your presentation.
Thank you, Kavita. Thank you, Colonel. Pleasure was all mine, and I hope that listeners got something out of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.